Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for November 25th, 2024. Would you please stand as you were able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Jenny Snell,
Present.
Scott Ohm,
Here.
Rachel Holteen,
Present.
Amanda Weaver, Corey Stites,
Here.
Janice Hoppy. Present. Dan Larson.
Dan was planning to join us online.
He is online. I believe he's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Dan Larson. Leah Dozman.
Leah, here.
Leah, sorry.
It's okay, thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Quorum.
Yes, we can. Thank you very much. Good. Okay. Thank you. Councilors, in your packet tonight, you have council meeting minutes from October 28, 2024, and special study session notes of the same date. Are there any modifications or corrections to be noted in these documents? Seeing none, these will stand approved with our thanks to the clerk. Are there any changes to be noted in the agenda? We will proceed with the agenda as prepared. And we have a proclamation, and we will go to the podium. This is a proclamation in support of Small Business Saturday, coming up this Saturday. And I'd like to invite Mr. Dominic Breton and Mr. Lowry Burnett to join me at the podium. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to see you. Here. Small Business Saturday, November 30th, 2024. Whereas Small Business Saturday is a day dedicated to supporting small businesses and communities across the country. Founded and backed by American Express, this day is celebrated each year on the Saturday between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, not including Sunday. Whereas, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 34.7 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees. Small businesses are responsible for 61% of the net new jobs created since 1995. And small businesses employ 45.9% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. Whereas 59% of U.S. consumers are aware of Small Business Saturday, shopped and ate at small, independently owned retailers or restaurants on Small Business Saturday in 2023. And whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the United States stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at a small business creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity because of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. And whereas the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado supports our local small businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. Now, therefore, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheat Ridge, and the Wheat Ridge City Council, do hereby proclaim November 30th, 2024, as Small Business Saturday, encouraging residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year, dated this 25th day of November, 2024. And we're very pleased to have Lowry Burnett, the president of the Wheat Ridge Business Association, and Dominic Breton with the Wheat Ridge Chamber here to receive this proclamation and maybe say a couple of words. So this is for you all to split. And would you like to say a few words?
Got
Okay, I guess our small businesses are getting ready for Saturday, so. All right, I'll get over here. There we go. How's that? All right. All right, smell the money. Here you go. Okay, all right, thanks, guys. Mayor. Make a lot of money on Saturday. Good. All right, sounds good. Is agenda item number 1. Mayor Pro Tem Sykes, could you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 48-2024, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2025 budget year, establishing the 2J Next Chapter Fund in 2024 and other budgetary amendments.
We do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight is the official public hearing, which is required by our city charter and states. Oh, yes, it is. Perfect. We do. Thank you. It will be much shorter than our study session, but it is our official public hearing, so we want to make sure that we give it its due, and if there's any new residents listening, we want to make sure they get a pretty good summary of it. So I will start out. We're going to, Maria is here, and Allie and Marianne here to help answer any questions that you may have. But as you remember, on Monday, October 21st, the leadership team presented the 2025 proposed budget for your consideration. The past 5 years have been a time of transformation for the city of Wheat Ridge. City Council has been a catalyst for several large and significant initiatives, demonstrated support for regional activities, and support staff on many key recommendations to strengthen the community and improve the quality of life for those who live, work, and play in Wheat Ridge. The key initiatives we have advanced in recent years include everything from homelessness response to sustainability, robust community engagement, to specialty licensing programs, affordable housing, to systems transformation, our next chapter planning efforts, and becoming an employer of choice, and everything in between. We've been putting city resources to work for the community, and we should be very proud of our accomplishments. However, this work has resulted in increased general fund expenditures, which have depleted our reserves closer to City Council's minimum fund balance of 17%. The 2025 budget represents a story of cautious optimism. It includes over $38 million in funding for capital projects, which Maria will talk about later. All those projects really have been driven by the community input we've been here receiving over the last few years. But it also prioritizes reduced general fund spending to start to rebuild reserves and keep base operational spending to a fiscally prudent minimum. So before we get into some more of the details, I'd like to thank City Council for a robust conversation during our study session. As Allie and I walk through this brief presentation that provides an overview of the 2025 budget, we will include anecdotes from the study session for the benefit of those listening this evening. Next slide. Allie, are you doing the slides?
Yeah.
There we go. So I want to briefly touch on where we expect our general fund budget to be at the end of this year, because that determines how much available funds we have for next year's budget. We are projecting to bring in approximately $1.3 million less in general fund revenues this year than we originally budgeted. This is due to a decline in building-related revenues because development projects that looked certain during the budget time did not proceed to pull permits. However, beginning fund balance in 2024 is about $2.5 million higher than budgeted, so total available funds in 2024 are higher than we expected. Estimated spending this year has increased compared to the original budget because of about $2.4 million in carryovers from 2023 into 2024. The large carryover amount is due to vehicles that had been ordered but not delivered, and planning efforts that had been encumbered but not yet paid. Overall, 2024 spending is estimated to be $2 million less than the adjusted 2024 budget. Ally?
Thank you. We're going to switch it up this evening between us all. So the total budget that we're here to ask for your approval and appropriation tonight is $95.6 million when we consider all funds. That's the total budget. That includes the general fund, our capital programs, and our special revenue funds. So we project we'll begin the year with about $59 million in the fund balance in total. We project almost $80 million in total revenues in 2025. We expect about, we are asking you to appropriate $95.6 million in total expenditures, which will leave an ending fund balance, again, all funds, of $43.4 million. And so just a reminder on this slide, that capital programs column includes the CIP, Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Fund, and the new 2J Bond Fund. Just as a little reminder, and for our viewing public, this is the 2025 total expenditures by fund. It's increased approximately $5.6 million or 6.2% from the original 2024 budget as adopted. This can be attributed really entirely to the new 2J fund and the associated project spending on infrastructure and maintenance projects in 2025. So together, the capital programs, again, CIP, Renewal Wheat Ridge, and 2J, account for over 40% of our 2025 budget. That's lots and lots of projects that we'll talk about just a little bit later.
Thank you, Ally. Turning now to just the general funds. This budget conservatively projects very little revenue growth in 2025 over this year's estimates, results in less than a 3% increase. Sales tax revenues are currently showing strong growth today at about 6% compared to the same period last year. However, there are significant rumblings about significant closing of different stores across the country, including Walgreens, Big Lots, and 7-Eleven, all of which exist in Wheat Ridge. So we want to ensure that we are estimating revenues very conservatively. Hopefully, our trend of sales tax growth that we're seeing today does continue, and that will be a good thing, but we are projecting only about 2.4% increase over this year to be conservative. And this pie graph shows where those general fund revenues are coming from. You can see that here, sales and use tax alone comprises 68% of our budget, or about $32 million of the $47 million in revenues. This is why we talk about retail sales so much and development in Wheat Ridge, because that's where most of our revenue comes from, and it's important to sustain those revenue options. I think one thing we like to point out here every year is many people are still very surprised to know that property tax revenue in Wheat Ridge at a city level is only 3% of our general fund revenue. So most of your property tax bill that you pay at home does not come to Wheat Ridge. It goes primarily to the county or the school district.
Thanks, Patrick. So just turning to general fund expenditures, the 2025 proposed budget includes a general fund of $48.7 million. This is a 5% decrease compared to the 2024 adjusted budget. We've not identified any one-time revenue sources in 2025. Therefore, we do not propose any transfers at this point to any other funds. We project this budget will leave the general fund with an ending fund balance of $11.5 million, of which $8.3 million is considered unrestricted, meaning it is not being saved for any particular purpose. Your fund balance policy sets the minimum unrestricted fund balance at 17%, and your 2025 budget here does achieve that minimum. This is just a simple pie chart that breaks the general fund expenditures down by department. You can see that police is our largest at 32% and 104 employees. Next is Parks and Recreation at 16%. Again, this is just of the general fund with about 49 employees. Public Works is next at 13%. with 34 employees. However, a lot of the Public Works Department spending is actually located in all those other funds. And so on and so forth. I won't go through every single one. Just as a reminder here, when we talk about government, general government, that's 8% of the budget. That includes you all. It's a mix of elected officials. It includes Mr. Dahl, city manager, economic development, central charges are those expenditures that sort of cross the city. It's medical, insurance, workers' compensation, all the real fun stuff is located in the central charges budget.
Thanks, Ally. As we discussed at the study session, staff presented several recommendations to City Council to balance the budget. For reasons mentioned earlier in this presentation, and largely due to a decrease in general fund reserves over the past few years due to growth in special initiatives, flat sales tax growth we saw in 2023, and a slowdown in building use tax and permit revenue in 24. The budget team had to include some recommended changes in order to balance the budget to City Council's 17% minimum reserve. In 2020, the first item in 2023, Council approved diverting short-term rental lodger tax revenue from the general fund to our newly created housing fund for affordable housing purposes. Between the revenue reductions we discussed and the overall decline in remaining lodger tax revenues from traditional hotels, the general fund cannot sustain this in 24 and 25. The Wheat Ridge Housing Fund has sufficient funds to cover the full-time employee for 2025, whose primary work will be to manage the $2 million received from Congress for our NOAA program, naturally occurring affordable housing, and then also to continue to advance our affordable housing strategy. Additionally, there is the possibility of additional revenue from development projects that will go into the housing fund for additional affordable housing projects and initiatives. For example, we're currently working on redevelopment of the American Motel project, and as part of that deal, we negotiated a $1 million contribution to our housing fund for affordable housing projects, so we should see that money next year. So for these reasons, we are asking council to pause the transfer, just pause, of lodger tax revenues from the general fund to the housing fund. As I mentioned, we had a good discussion about this at the study session. Council did support the strategy, but council also asked that we develop guardrails to ensure that council's original intent to fund affordable housing is preserved. So for that reason, you will note in this specific years affected, which are 24 and 25. Those are specifically called out in the resolution that is in your packet this evening. So our intent is to return spending to the appropriate revenue, of the appropriate revenue to the Wheat Ridge Housing Fund in 2026 to the extent possible. We've made other reductions in the budget. For example, we're evaluating vacant positions as they come up to determine if it's critical that they are backfilled. In 2025, we already have 3 vacancies on hold for the entire year and are not funded, 1 in admin services, 1 in municipal court, and 1 in community development. As vacancies arise, we have a new process in place to evaluate whether the position can be held for a period of time while we work on rebuilding our reserves. We've also eliminated a lot of discretionary spending across the general fund budget, including conference travel spending in 2025. And there really isn't anything new proposed in the general fund budget for next year. With that, go back to Ally.
Just touching again on outside agency contributions. We did discuss this at the study session, and I've been in touch with the various partners affected, and just want to reiterate here what's included in the budget and what isn't. You originally gave consensus as follows: Carnation Festival, $135,000 in this budget. That is reduced to $100,000. Your original consensus was for the Wheat Ridge Business District to be funded at the level of $90,000 in the budget, and as discussed at the study session, there is $45,000. And Local Works at $329,700, and in the budget is $326,200. I will share that the affected partners have been incredibly understanding and grateful, and obviously were invited here this evening, but did not raise any concerns about those funding levels. And then finally, we'll just touch on the 38 organizations that are included in the Community Partners Grant Program. The original recommendation, again, as discussed at the study session, was 200,000. We recommend in this budget 177,750. That's a 10% reduction to each of the 38, was really 37 organizations funding level, and that is after the dissolution of the Severe Weather Shelter Network. So that concludes our comments on the general fund. I will hand it over to Maria to chat about our capital programs, the exciting part of the budget.
Thanks so much, Ellie. Undoubtedly, the most exciting thing about the budget is the $39.4 million total without including our debt payment and capital project spending across the CIP, the Renewal Wheat Ridge, our 2J, Open Space, and Conservation Trust funds. Not that I'm biased or anything, but it is really the most exciting part of the budget.
That's fair.
Across these funds, you will see major projects, including the Green at 38th, our Youngfield Beautification Project, the Wheat Ridge Ward Station Bridge, Plaza, and Trail, as well as the West 38th study and project for between Youngfield and Kipling, our East 38th refresh project, the 35th Avenue bike lanes, and last but not least, of course, our Wadsworth improvement project that's ongoing. These and many more. So we'll touch on those in a little bit more detail as we go through each projects by fund. And before I move on, we just want to acknowledge that at the budget study session, we did hear that council provided consensus to have a conversation in this upcoming year about a long-term funding strategy for how we do capital improvement projects. So not relying on 2J, not relying necessarily on budget or on bond measures, but having that sustained ability to go for ongoing maintenance of our infrastructure systems. So first, the CIP, or our Capital Improvement Program. So this lists kind of the three major projects. Again, the Improved Wadsworth project, showing there at 10.7 million, as well as our Shared Use Path, which is being partially funded through a TIP grant from DRCOG, and then our ongoing Neighborhood Traffic Management Program. I did want to mention also a little bit smaller amount at 65,000, but we did talk about it last Monday. We're going to move forward based on council direction with that utility rate study. So that was included in the CIP for 2025 as well at 65,000. Then our next list is the Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Projects. As you can see there, a variety of projects across those three areas, being Applewood, Kipling area, as well as the Ward Station. And you can see the large project up there again is that Bridge, Trail, and Plaza projects up near Ward Station at $12.35 million. Our intent would be is that we're going to finish design probably about the middle part of 2025 and be able to move towards construction towards the end of 2025. And finally, 2J. So we talked quite a bit at the budget study session about these projects, and as we mentioned, we're still refining that list, and that's based on two things. We were able to secure those bond proceeds, so we have that money in the bank, just over $33 million, which is wonderful, but we're also identifying the necessary resources within staff in order to deliver these projects. So as you may recall, we did put in money for some personnel to help us accomplish this. And we're in the process of probably after the first of the year trying to get those positions filled so that we can have a more robust plan of how we're going to deliver this. We're also evaluating grant opportunities where we can in order to match that money, the 2J funds where possible, so that we can hopefully leverage those funds in a more robust fashion. At the budget study session, a question did come up about when we're going to start work on the West 38th Avenue project between Kipling and Youngfield. And as you might recall, that project is really about improving safety for all users, including bicyclists, pedestrians, as well as drivers, and improving access to both schools, residents, as well as businesses. And that study kicked off in the spring of 2023, where we looked at assessing the infrastructure. We've done 3 public outreach events over the last year and a half, and we'll be bringing those results back to you probably in the first quarter sometime, early first quarter of 2025. And if we do have a consensus from council, what we would do is we'd come back and actually have a budget amendment so that we can move forward with final design in 2025 on that project. So that's our intent there. And then we would also, again, be looking at options and opportunities for grant funding to help match some of those funds for moving towards construction. And then finally, I'll just touch on open space in our CTF budget. So the big one there, of course, is the Green at 38th project, which is ongoing and moving forward at a rapid pace, and then some smaller amounts there. So we do plan to return to you next year with recommendations once we know more as we move forward with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
Patrick, do you just want to touch briefly on the Color Strand and Wilmore Davis questions that had come up at the
Yeah.
study session?
Thank you, Ally. We did hear from several of you at the study session that you didn't see anything in the budget for Color Strand and Wilmore Davis, and that is true. There's nothing budgeted. If you remember, though, we did have a meeting with the school district several months ago and asked them to hold off on surplusing those properties until we had a chance to engage our community through our Parks and Rec Master Plan, which we're doing, and that should be wrapping up here by the first of next year. And then we'll come back to you with recommendations. We're kind of working behind the scenes a little bit to look at options, and so they're not forgotten. And I think staff agrees as well that those should be priorities, and we're doing everything we can. But we need a little bit more information, and we'll come back with recommendations as soon as we have them.
Almost there. So finally, just on staffing, our proposal in this budget is to add 2 full-time positions. Maria touched on that. They're both funded in 2J. One is an infrastructure projects manager to, again, help really deliver this very exciting and robust capital improvements program. And the other is a project technician to, again, assist with that. So again, that's all been cleared through our bond council. Another thing we're doing this year is to move a position out of the general fund so you'll see a general fund sort of number go down. That moves a position out of the general fund and into the crime prevention fund. Lodgers tax in our special funds is doing very well because of short-term rentals, and will continue to do well with with hotels at Clear Creek Crossing coming online. One will come online next year, and the other we're not sure of the timing yet, but there'll be another hotel out there that will generate substantial lodgers tax. So the crime prevention fund can certainly absorb that and provide just a little bit of relief to the general fund. And finally, just a reminder that 2025 will be our 3rd year providing benefits through the Colorado Employer Benefit Trust, which has allowed us to offer both United Healthcare and Kaiser to you all and to our employees. And so we know that our premiums are going up by 8.5% next year due to our usage and sort of the industry. So that actually concludes our presentation. I just wanted to walk through what you see in your budget resolution this year, because there's a couple extra things than you may have seen in the past. And I just want to touch on why that might be. So your budget resolution does 4 things. The first is to appropriate funding for 2025, and you're used to that. That's normally what you'd see in appropriating money for the next year. The other thing it does, and this is very exciting, is it establishes the 2J fund this year. It establishes the 2J fund in 2024, and we really need you to do that so that we can actually spend money this year. We need to spend money on 2 things. One of those is the debt issuance costs. So all the money associated with all the expenditures associated with issuing the debt, and that's all in the budget in front of you. And the other is earlier this year, you approved a reimbursement resolution for emergency stormwater repairs. And so essentially this 2J bond money advanced the CIP $1 million. And so it included in this 2024 budget is that $1 million transfer from 2J back into the CIP to make that budget whole. So that's the second thing it does. The third thing that your budget resolution does tonight is it authorizes the retention of the general fund portion of that short-term rental lodgers tax in the general fund. And Patrick touched on that it authorizes it for 24 and 25 only. And so our goal would then be to include that short-term lodgers tax as a funding source for the Wheat Ridge Housing Fund in 2026. And then finally, it reduces the 2024 Renewal Wheat Ridge Bond Project Fund by almost $387,000 to provide for an ending fund balance of zero. As you know, that fund always has a zero ending fund balance because it's just the project that the money comes in from Renewal Wheat Ridge to fund the actual projects that we do. But because of carryovers, that put the adjusted budget into the negative, and we don't, by the end of the year, we just need to clean that up. So that is the fourth thing that your budget resolution does tonight. With that, Marianne, Maria, Patrick, and I are here for any questions you might have, and I'll stop sharing so that we can hear Councillor Larson.
Thank you very much. We would go to any questions from the public or comments on the public on this agenda item, but we have no one signed up to speak. So I will open this up to questions from council. Questions of council on the budget. Councillor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. This feels like a question maybe I should have asked at the study session, but I am curious, when we're looking at our tax revenue, how much of that is online sales from non-brick and mortar revenue?
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if
I
we
don't
have
want to hesitate.
you have it
We'll
in your
find
head.
out. I don't
We'll find
have
out
it
and let
in
you know. It's, I don't have the percentage in front of us. It's increased significantly since the Supreme Court decision, the Wayfair decision, and also just our staff going after making sure that we're getting the money we should. And I'd hate to throw a number out right now because I can't remember, but it's fairly significant.
Yeah, and maybe I don't need a number, but just a trend is,
percentage.
yeah.
We'll get that for you. So sorry. Like, we hate
That's
to,
okay. Yeah, I should
we
have.
hate to guess and not be right.
Okay. And then you were mentioning that some of the budget impacts from this year are from carryovers from 2023 with like delayed delivery of vehicles. So in 2023 or 2024, did we make decisions to then spend those dollars for those vehicles for other things?
No, it doesn't. We don't carry over money that we don't have.
Right.
But it increases the budget is what happens.
Okay.
So the money, essentially what happens, and this will happen again this year, although hopefully to a much lesser degree because we're caught up. That was a lot of supply chain issues in that particular example, especially in the general fund. There should be minimal carryovers in the general fund. There might be some related to vehicles, but there'll still be quite a lot in capital because, those are funds that we encumber now for big projects, like Wadsworth is a great example, and then we have to carry that over. But the money essentially goes back into that fund's balance and then gets reappropriated. So in the case of Renewal Wheat Ridge, it's just that because we budget to a zero fund balance, that's not an interest earning account. When we do the carryovers, it puts the year's budget in the red.
Okay, that was helpful. Yeah, just because I know we just approved a lot of vehicle purchases, and I was just wondering how that works year over year. So
they're all budgeted.
yeah.
And so if we have any of those carryovers, it'll go back in the general funds balance and then reappropriated next year. But it's the reason why the budget, we've done very, very few supplemental appropriations this year. I can think of 3 total in the general fund, but that's the big one that we do in February every year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And to follow up on your question about online sales, I can tell you that revenue from Amazon is in 23 was our 6th highest revenue source, if that gives you a little bit of, it's a fairly big drop after our top 5, but it's one of our top revenue sources.
Additional questions from council or staff? I had one, Dan, I'll be with you in a minute, but I had one on the general fund revenues. In the other category, we have Excel Solar Garden credits, and it looks like those are $40,000 projected this year. That's a good increase over this year. Is that a?
Yep, that's accurate. We had a year or two where the solar panels were not working properly, so we were not receiving our credits. They were able to resolve that problem. I think they had some supply chain issues as well during when COVID was wrapping up.
Okay.
But it looks like we're getting back to normal credits that we are receiving. Yep.
Thank you very much. Counselor Larson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I understand that this topic was mentioned earlier, but I would like one more time if we could go over the stormwater repairs that are part of the capital improvement budget, I believe. And the number that we saw on the screen was 1.725 million set for 2025 in the 2025 budget. But some of that money will be reverting back to the 2J money. And I've had this discussion with Maria, and Maria, if you could help clear this up for us one more time, how the amount of money that we will have for stormwater repairs and some of the other surveying work that will be going on this year, how that budget has been, what it looks like going forward.
Certainly. Yeah, as Ally mentioned, so in 2024, we will reimburse the CIP fund for approximately $1 million. We've spent, council passed a resolution, I believe it was in April of this year, authorizing future spending from 2J to be reimbursed back to the capital improvement fund, specifically for emergency storm sewer repairs. So that action will take place as part of this, is in the resolution, as Ellie mentioned. The 1.725 that you mentioned, that's on the presentation, the majority of that is intended to go for emergency storm sewer repairs. So as things appear in the pavement and we're required to do repairs to them, or that reactive type of maintenance, that'll be the focus. But we would also like to do is look at all the hot spots around town, if you will, where we kind of know that there might be some issues, and clean out those pipes first, make sure all the debris is removed, and then televise them to see what kind of condition there is. And our goal would be is that we would use a portion of that 1.725 to do some proactive repairs in those hot spots, if you will. And as I mentioned, as we talked about a little bit last Monday, is instead of waiting for them for the storm sewer or the pipe itself to fail, is we could try and line it at a much cheaper cost. And so we'd like to do that starting this year, get out ahead of that if possible.
And I'm sorry, just so I'm clear on this, in terms of actual available revenue for the stormwater repairs and the surveying, we're talking about 1 million, and the other 750 some thousand goes back to the 2J fund. Is that correct?
No, and actually, to correct our earlier conversation, Councilmember Larson, the entire 1.725 will go for new repairs in 2025. The reimbursement that Ally mentioned will occur in 2024.
Okay, gotcha. That clears it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions before I close the public hearing? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Mayor Pro Tem Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 48-2024, a resolution adopting the city budget and appropriating sums of money to various funds and spending agencies for City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for 2025 budget year, establishing 2J Next Chapter Bond Fund in 2024 and other budget amendments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Hoppe. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I just really want to thank staff. I cannot imagine how much work this is, especially in a year when we have to look at cutting back some things that are very popular on the dais and in our community. So I'm really proud of this budget, and I think it continues to serve our community while being fiscally responsible both next year and the years beyond. I also really want to thank thank staff for being receptive to the discussions we had around protecting our housing affordability fund. We have done, I think, a remarkable job of attracting investments outside of our own commitment through the dollars that we've allocated. But long term, I just appreciate that my colleagues agree it's important for us to look at ways to protect that, because housing affordability is I would say, the number one issue that a lot of our community and communities around us are facing. We're doing good work today, but I want to make sure we're doing good work in the long run. And then I just also want to thank, I just want to thank staff also for being willing to carry forward the conversation about longer term solutions for maintaining the system that we have for our transportation. I think Wheat Ridge does a remarkable job being competitive for grant funding for our infrastructure. We've done a good job going to Washington and making the case. But increasingly, I think that landscape and funding availability is going to be pretty stark. So we need to really be resilient in our own community and look at ways to make sure that all the investments that we've made and are making are not undone by not being able to take care of stuff moving forward. So I think this is a great budget, good work, and I'm looking forward to the future conversations with my colleagues to make sure we continue doing good stuff. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 2. Councilor Dozeman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 23, 2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning work in the public right-of-way and licensing of municipal contractors. At issue, Chapter 21 of the city's municipal code provides for construction and other work activities within or upon the public right-of-way while protecting the integrity of the roadway network and city-owned infrastructure. This ordinance adds or modifies language to the municipal code to address various construction-related provisions and streamlines the licensing provisions.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 23, 2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 21 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning work in the public right-of-way and the registration and licensing of building contractors on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in city council chambers, and that it takes effect on January 1st, 2025.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll go to agenda item number 3. Councilor Hoppe, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 24-2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the registration and licensing of building contractors. At issue, the city's Community Development Department manages and licensing the building contractors. Currently, there are 14 license categories, over 3,400 activity licenses. This ordinance simplifies the licensing framework.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 24-2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 5 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning the registration and licensing of building contractors. On first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in city council chambers, and it takes effect on January 1st, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Dozeman. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 4. Councilor Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Council Bill number 25-2024, an ordinance approving the sale of city-owned real property at the intersection of West 38th Avenue and Johnson Street, and in connection therewith authorizing execution of a purchase and sale agreement. At issue, the city was approached by Kyle and Aaron Value for a proposed retail development, DOP's Sweet Spot, at the southwest corner of 38th Avenue and Johnson Street. The 29,810 square foot parcel is owned by the city of Wheat Ridge and was rezoned to planned commercial development in 2008. Permitted uses on the subject property include any land use allowed in the city's restricted commercial zone district. This proposed retail use would be a permitted use. Only 25,378 square feet of the parcel would be sold, and the remaining 4,432 feet would be retained by the city for regional drainage. Section 16.5 of the city charter states that the city shall not sell or dispose of municipally owned buildings or real property for a public purpose without first obtaining the approval by ordinance of 3/4 of the entire council.
Thank you. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the date, time, and location for a public hearing. May I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve Council Bill number 25-2024, an ordinance approving the sale of city-owned real property at the intersection of West 38th Avenue and Johnson Street, and in connection therewith authorizing execution of a purchase and sale agreement on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, December 9th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. as a virtual meeting and in City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication as provided by Section 5.11 of the Charter.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Ohm. Would the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 5. Councilor Larson, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is resolution number 49-2024, a resolution levying general property taxes for the year 2024 to help defray the costs of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2025 budget year. At issue, this resolution authorizes the levying of property taxes for the 2024 fiscal year to help defray the costs of government in 2025.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
I think Ms. Scheck's going to add a little bit of background on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Goff. We try to do this the same night as you all adopt the budget every year. So our the state statute requires that you adopt the budget, and then you certify the mill levy for Wheat Ridge, and then we turn that into the county tomorrow, if you approve that this evening, so that we meet the assessor's deadline, so that we can levy that sales tax to defray the cost of next year's government spending. There's really not a whole lot to add. There's no change to the city's mill levy. That's 1.830 mills, raising approximately $1.5 million in property tax in 2025, and that is approximately $45 per person who lives here in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public signed up to speak on this item, so I will go to questions from council. Are there questions from council on agenda item number 5? Seeing none, Councilor Larson, may I have a motion on this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 49-2024, a resolution levying general property taxes for the year 2024 to help defray the costs of government for the city of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for the 2025 budget year.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will now go to agenda item number 6. Councilor Snell, would you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. This is resolution number 50-2024, a resolution amending the 2015 Parks and Recreation Master Plan. At issue, the 2015 Parks and Recreation Master Plan was adopted by City Council on April 27th, 2015. The plan designates certain parcels in the city as parkland. In 2008, City Council approved an ordinance rezoning the property, which is now Discovery Park. The outline development plan included a condition that up to 36,000 square feet of the northern portion of the site may be used for commercial uses. However, the parkland designation on this portion of the site was not removed. This resolution will amend the 2015 Parks and Recreation Master Plan to remove the parkland designation from this remnant parcel.
Thank you. This will be a resolution of the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
Maybe just add a little bit more detail. This is related to the ordinance on first reading that you just approved for the sale of property at West 38th Avenue and Johnson Street. And as was read in the issue statements, there is a remnant parcel that was not developed as part of Discovery park, and there were numerous actions taken since that time in 2008 that that changed this remnant parcel from parkland to commercial property. But as was mentioned, unfortunately, the Parks and Rec Master Plan, I believe it was an error, labeled this remnant parcel as parkland still. City charter does require that any selling of parkland requires a unanimous vote at City Council. If this is approved this evening to sell this parcel, it just requires a supermajority vote of supermajority, right? Yep, supermajority of the entire council. So if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no members of the public signed up to speak on this, so we'll go to questions from council on this. Councilor Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that kind of just begs the question for me as far as like why we didn't address this when CVS and Apple Ridge Cafe were potentially trying to reconfigure and move. Was that just not an option at that point in time, or?
It was a different council, different opinions and thoughts at that time, and we just decided not to move forward at that time.
Additional questions, staff? Seeing none, Councilor Snell, may I have a motion on this item?
I move to approve resolution number 50-2024, a resolution amending the 2015 Parks and Recreation Master Plan.
We have a motion and a second by Councilman Ohm. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Councilor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to say that, yes, this wasn't the process that we took when there was somebody else potentially maybe looking at that property, but it was like that property plus the whole property on Apple Ridge, and that they wouldn't maybe even need this piece. But I do appreciate that we're going through this process rather than setting it up so it could be like a one vote no would crush it. And honestly, that piece of land is really just sitting there underutilized, and so in that space, and this would be a really fantastic use for it. So
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. We will go to agenda item number 7. Councilor Hulteen, would you please introduce this item?
It would be my pleasure. I'd like to introduce a motion to approve the contract with OpenGov for the financial system in the amount of $424,070 at issue. Over the course of the last 3 years, the city has evaluated its systems and business processes in order to streamline and modernize essential organizational functions. The city has selected 5 systems to drive efficiency and modernize business practices across the enterprise. The third system to be purchased and implemented is OpenGov Financials, which will modernize financial practices and improve budgeting and procurement processes.
Thank you. This will be a motion to the council. It is not quasi-judicial. Mr. Goff, we have a staff presentation on this side.
We do. We'll add a little bit more to this. I'd just like to say first that this has been a huge lift for staff, and I want to thank staff for continuing moving this forward. But this, as you remember, this was a major priority for City Council to do this, and this is a huge step forward. This doesn't include all of our system upgrades, but this is a big one. So I'll turn it over to Allie to give you a little bit update.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. Yes, we're very excited to be here this evening requesting approval of the OpenGov financial system contract. So you might recall this is part of our system transformation project, the genesis of which was council's direction back in 2021 to improve permitting and licensing. And while I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about this particular contract tonight, I'd just like to take a moment to update you on the overall progress of this project. So this is our solutions roadmap, our systems transformation roadmap. And, you know, I talk about this often in the Administrative Services Department. We call ourselves Base Camp. We're here to provide support to you all, to colleagues, to community, to the rest of the organization. And so, you know, you can see Base Camp at the bottom of this map. But there are 5 systems, and I was talking to Councilor Snell earlier and saying we kind of feel like Goldilocks in all this. We set out looking for this one system that could do as much as possible, and really found that we needed, you know, things just weren't good enough for Wheat Ridge, and we took a best of breed approach. So the The first two systems to go live are the systems to improve and streamline licensing and tax and permitting. So the red star, I don't know if my mouse carries, no, it doesn't get up there. The red star shows the progress of permitting and contractor licensing system, and the green star shows the progress of our tax and business licensing system. So you can see that right now we're just getting ready to train staff on those systems. These modern systems will automate various tasks, combine functionality to ensure a more efficient workflow for contractors, permit applicants, businesses, residents, and staff. And in the next 2 weeks, staff are being trained and testing the system. So this is a multi-departmental effort. It includes Maria's team, community development, my team in finance, obviously IT. We're deep into it and kind of working around the clock right now. So we're refining our messaging, our communications, our how-to guides to ensure that our customers are ready, and these systems will go live in the new year. So stay tuned for more detailed information after the Thanksgiving holiday when we'll be putting that out to the public. So that's the red and the green, first two, the public-facing systems, ready to go live here right at the beginning of 2025. So the system we're here to talk about this evening is our financial system, and that's the light blue star. You can see that along with a purple star under council contract approval. We'll talk about purple in a minute. But that after digging into 5 different finance systems, we're here to recommend OpenGov Financials. So it's everything that you would expect of a modern finance system, but it also includes some additional functionality beyond that of our competitors at a price point that is within reach for Wheat Ridge. So specifically, there's a budgeting module which will help provide a really beautiful ADA compliant and interactive online budget presentation. The one you see, we're really proud of the budget that we produce, but it's about 300 different, no joke, 300 different Word and Excel documents that are somewhat disparate. And so this will be fully integrated and built into the financials, but it will also present publicly and to you all as an online tool. It can be printed as a PDF, but it's interactive. And again, it's ADA compliant, which, as you know, is a huge challenge for us. We cannot make this budget book ADA compliant. We have an accommodation statement that says, if you'd like a specific document, to email our ADA coordinator, Kelly, but this new tool will be. The other thing that OpenGov Financials offers is an integrated procurement system. So all of our solicitations, all the bid management, the bid transparency and contract management will also be built into this system. It's available to us through a cooperative agreement through Carasoft. So we're very excited about this. This is, I'll just also share that we have also selected a human resources information system, HRIS, and that's the purple star. And I'll be back to ask for your approval on December 9th for a contract with that vendor. And so the final system that we're working on is our court system, and that's the gold star. We have just resumed looking at some different products for that particular system. So we've secured quite a lot of grant funding, both for the permitting system, for the HRIS, and for court. We saved of our own money $844,000 to implement all this, but we've managed to secure almost $500,000 extra in grant funding, again, for permitting HRIS and court. So we're very thankful for that. We'll unveil more details on that. So there is no budget supplemental tonight. Funding for this contract for the OpenGov Financials is set aside in the Equipment Replacement Fund. It's budgeted in 2025, both the software fees and the implementation costs. The ongoing subscription fees will be general fund expenditures starting in 2026. James Jaggers from OpenGov is on the line. If you have any questions for either of us, again, I'll stop sharing so that we can hear Councilor Larson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have no members of the public that have signed up to speak on this, so we will go to questions from council. We have questions from council before we go to a motion on this item.
Mayor, if I might.
Mr. Counselor Larson.
Thank you. And Ally, I really appreciate that very, very clear discussion of what we're looking at here in these 5 separate, very, very important parts of our city government. I did have, and you answered my question about ongoing funding, because when you look at the quote that the Carasoft folks provided, the total amount going out 3 years is almost 700,000. So it looks like the first year, the first pass will be kind of the setup and everything, and that's about 425,000. And then the subsequent years are more than half each of that, 128,000 in 26 and 133,000 in 2027. And then there's some travel and expense there. And so when you look at the whole contract over the 3 years, the city will be spending almost $700,000. I think it makes a lot of sense the way this thing has been put together, especially when very often we can see this the bottom line on this as something that will very much help build the public trust. The transparency built into this system is really fantastic, and if there are things we can do that allow people to have a look at a very almost an interactive look at how our budget process and how the city spends the money, I think that will go a very, very long way to help building public trust in the process here. So if you could just very, very quickly explain how the subsequent years, how they, is it simply a subscription cost, or are there other elements that go with that?
Thank you, Councilor Larson, for the question. No, it is a scary number for Wheat Ridge, but there should be no other costs in those future years. The implementation is really the big cost. This is over a year's worth of work. We expect this is going to take us 15 months to fully implement. That $400,000 rough and tough implementation cost, professional services cost, pays for the OpenGov team taking on 80% of the work, and this very small City of Wheat Ridge staff taking on 20% of the work. So when the city manager and the finance manager and I start to work on our long-term financial plan, all of the ongoing, what we call the software as a subscription, the SaaS, software as a service costs, that 120 plus each year, will be budgeted out of the general fund. I mean, that is unless, of course, we could continue to stretch our equipment replacement fund dollars with other grant funding. One of the things that I think, we've been very successful in securing almost $500,000 thus far for these other 3 systems. I actually think that the budget module here could be a contender, frankly, for some potentially some additional grant funding to help us stretch those ERP dollars even further.
And if I could add to that real quickly too, we do have some current annual expenditures for our current systems we use. It's much lower than this, but there will be some cost savings because we won't be using those as well. But we also believe the efficiencies that are going to be gained from these new systems over time through employee attrition may allow us to at least not increase staffing down the road, but potentially even through attrition, reduce our staffing levels.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion on this item, Councilwoman Hulteen?
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the contract with OpenGov for the financial system in the amount of $424,070.
We have a motion and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Stites. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilor Snell.
Just briefly, I wanted to just mention when Councilor Ohm and I were at the NLC conference, we got to chat with these folks. I chatted with them for a bit and saw a demo of this program. And it seems to be very complete, user-friendly. And I think in my very limited time talking with them, I think it's going to be a really good addition for us. So I got to see a little bit of what it looks like.
So you kicked the tires and they didn't kick back? Is that it?
Yeah,
Okay.
good. It was good. It was good.
Very good.
It smelled good. Yeah. So.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
I'll just make this quick. It dawns on me, we have had several conversations in the last couple of months about deferred maintenance and modernization of the city. And I think this is just really an important aspect of it. And so I'm just excited. I feel like this is an exciting night for our finance people. We got the budget, we got our mill levy, we're getting some sweet, shiny new modern software. But I think that this is the kind of investment in ourselves that keeps us modern, and not taking care of this now just will be a greater cost later. So I appreciate all the work staff has gone in to find the right solutions for our city. And I'm a happy yes on this one. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Weaver.
I just want to say how excited I am to use an online tool so that I can dig into the budget beforehand. And I'd like us to somehow be able to count who actually digs into the budget beforehand and uses the online tool. Though I do think that's really great, because your point of having the 300 documents that all, I mean, this just makes sense for the size of budget we have. So thank you again for all the research that went into this.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please poll the council?
All ayes, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our action items tonight. We will go right now to city managers matters. Mr. Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know our city attorney, city clerk, and deputy city manager have an item. I think who's going to
We
start?
do, I will, thank you.
Yes.
And Jerry and Margie pitch in. And actually, just one thing I just wanted to mention to Councilor Weaver's point, just to on the last item, just to manage expectations, the budget module won't be live for the 2026 budget. Just, like I said, it's good. This monster is going to take us over a year to implement, but it will be for the 2027 budget.
You can dig in
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So back to regularly scheduled programming. Yes, this is a little update about boards and commissions. So Margie, Jerry, and I are looking for a little feedback on something. So you may recall about this time last year, we all did a lot of work to update the code regarding boards and commissions. And we earlier this year realized an omission that we'd like to update. And if you agree, we'd like to get this cleaned up before we start appointing, before we ask you to appoint new members in February. So the code states, as it has always stated, and we intended to clean this up, that a board or commission member who moves out of the district they represent shall cease to be a member of that board and commission, and their seat shall automatically be deemed vacated as of the date they moved out of the district. You all appoint out of district members all the time. And to be honest, we often don't know, we don't learn about members moving out of district until well after it has occurred. Sometimes it's a year or two. But when we do learn that, when we do hear that someone has moved, our code says, and our attorneys therefore says, that person has to vacate their seat. This actually did happen earlier this year. And again, given that you all allow out-of-district appointments, we don't believe that aligns with your intent. And that we believe from our prior conversations that council's intent is actually to allow a member to continue to serve out their term, provided, of course, that they don't leave the city, but that they just leave the district. And then when their term ends, they either perhaps apply for the district that they live in, or perhaps if they're eligible for another term, you might all consider them as an out-of-district appointment. So if you agree with this change, this is a very simple code update that our city attorney is looking for direction on. And we'll just bring that back to you prior to us starting the appointment process for next year, which will be here before we know it. Jerry, Margie?
I might add that when Ally mentions that you allow out-of-district appointments, that's true in a sort of narrow band, which is that the way the code's written, and I think it was amended a number of years ago to say this, when upon an advertisement, when there's a vacancy, no in-district, applicants can be located, then the council can take an out-of-district applicant. It's not like when there's a vacancy, you can just appoint an out-of-district no matter what. If there are in-district applicants, then that's the pool you choose from. But there have been circumstances, and that's why it led to that code change, that there just weren't any in-district applicants. And so the council a number of years ago amended the code to say, when that's the case, we can go to an out-of-district applicant. So that's a sort of a refinement of the one aspect of what Ally said, but other than that, the idea of people, moving for whatever reason during a term, certainly would be easier if they can remain on the Board of Commission until the end of that term.
Thank you. Counselor Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I know that, so when we first started working on this, I worked for a long time with Cole, going through a lot of this stuff to kind of like set it up for it to come into the study session. One of the things that Cole and I had a conversation with, and I believe, Ally, you and I had a conversation about it too, before it came to city council, was what happens if they move? And our intent was for them to, because we were doing term limits and limiting the number of terms you could do, our intent was to let them finish their term, and then at the end of that term, then people in that when it opens, then people in that district apply for it, right? And of course, if you move out of the city, then you're done. And the hopes are, if you move out of the city, you're going to move out of the city, and you notify us, ahead of time, instead of it being surprise, you move to a different district kind of situation. So, so I think, that was kind of like our intent. I don't know that it really came across very well when it came to study session in our presentation.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this? Counselor Hulteen?
I support this. I have a question related to the boards and commission stuff that I'm only bringing up because it's being brought up again by staff. I cannot remember where we are with if we allow non-citizens to be on our boards and commissions.
There was one non-citizens meeting, non-residents,
Do you have to be
a United States citizen.
a U.S. citizen?
No, I think
Do you have to be able to vote? I think might be a requirement.
Let me check, but I think it's just residents.
I think there is in the chart.
It's a voter, you have to be registered to vote, right, Margie, in order to serve on a board of commission. Did we change that in the
I believe
charter?
on the boards and commissions, you have to be a registered voter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you'd have to be a citizen.
In the charter.
It's a charter.
It's in the charter, yeah.
Okay. Okay, we should have cleaned that up in the vote. Okay, all right. That's my question. Thank you.
Mayor?
Mr. Larson, yes, I didn't see your hand there.
No, that's fine. Thank you. I guess, and I think it makes a lot of sense, and I would support this change, but I'm wondering if with that, we might want to be a little more specific on the whole notification, that if somebody is moving within the city of Wheat Ridge to another district, that, part of the agreement is that they notify the city that they've in fact moved, and instead of putting it off or just forgetting about it.
Thanks, Councilor Larson. Yeah, I think we can develop that into practice. Don't you think, Margie? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Okay, I believe that staff is looking for consensus to move forward with this feature. Do we have consensus? It looks like we do.
Thank you, and our apologies. We know this is the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Goff, you've got another bite at the apple here.
No, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dahl, you have, I guess, a half a bite at the apple left? Is that-
Nothing further, thank you.
Nothing further tonight. Okay. And so then we will go with elected officials matters. Let me start with our online participant, Councilor Larson.
Well, thank you, Mayor. And about the only thing I'd like to emphasize for this week is to enjoy the time with your friends and loved ones and families. And I hope everybody has a very, very good and thankful holiday.
Thank you. Councilor Hulteen.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got two things. This is our first official meeting since the election, and civics and civility has been at the forefront of my mind. I think as a local elected official, I've really given a lot of thought and intentionality that, we are elected not under the auspice of any party, but as a neighbor and as a resident who cares deeply about the city and about our neighbors. And so I've been really just anchoring into, that we show up every day and represent everybody, no matter how and who they voted for. And I was listening to a podcast the other day as I was walking to Happiness Gardens, my happy place. And Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote The Tipping Point, was referencing a study that he had read. And I just wanted to share a couple of these things as good reminders to how we understand ourselves as a civic body. 97% of political content online comes from 10% of social media users. So our diet of online content and what we know about our political views is really disproportionate to actually our neighbors and what they think and believe. 30% of all information online is toxic, and it's generated by just 3% of the users. So the understanding and belief that we have a lot of toxic viewpoints amongst us is, again, not consistent with the reality of our community. And 80% of fake news comes from just 0.1% of online users. And so we need to remember that the truth is found in conversations with people we know and trust and in civic spaces. And I can't think of a better place than Wheat Ridge for us to propagate that. And I just want to, remind us all that I think we know this as elected officials, but I hope our community members remember that what they're experiencing online is actually not who we are as a community. And I think we work hard to shine beyond that. But I just wanted to anchor that reminder here amongst you guys. And then there's this Thanksgiving holiday coming up this week. And a tradition in my family is to recite a poem that my late mother wrote in 5th grade. She was very, very bitter in 5th grade because she got a B+ on it. And she felt it was a better poem than a B+. Apparently it was from punctuation. So everyone in my family is charged with memorizing this poem. And if you are 5 or 6 years old and cannot memorize this, then you're put on notice. No Thanksgiving dinner for you next year, if you don't. So anyway, I would like to share my mom's bitter Thanksgiving poem. Gobble, gobble, said the turkey before Thanksgiving Day. How will you treat me? Will you eat me? If you do, I'll run away. And so came Thanksgiving Day, and though the turkey prayed and prayed, they ate them all up, and that was the end. And I'm afraid this story we cannot mend. Have a good Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you. Councilor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One acknowledgement I wanted to just mention, this past Saturday was the 2nd annual Turkey Trot. It was put on by Feed Your Soul Fitness, and they have a nonprofit arm called the Feed Your Soul Foundation, or Feed Your Soul Fund. This is the 2nd annual, and then they're set on making this a tradition in our community. But the really, really nice thing about this 5K, it took place at Prospect Park, and their basically purpose for doing this was to highlight and give to our Feeding the Future program, which directly impacts kids in our community with food insecurity. And so I just wanted to give them a shout out because they've done an amazing job of raising awareness of that program, getting some funds, and also creating a really cool new tradition in our community. So I got to be a part of it last year and this year, and I just encourage everyone to look into doing it next year. It's a great time. Lots of cute dogs. So why else would you do anything except to look at cute dogs? So it was great. And then also I'd just like to say thank you to Councilmember Hulteen and also further that this is our first meeting since the election, our first formal meeting since the election. And I know that there is a section of our community and just folks out there that are not feeling great about it. And I want to make sure that we as leaders are doing what we can to be kind and make sure that our constituents and our community members are safe. And so I would just encourage everyone, lead with your heart and be kind and look out for everyone because there are folks that are scared. And I think that we have a great opportunity here in Wheat Ridge because we have such a connected, loving community. And I think we can only radiate that out. And so just consider that, especially this time of year. We're giving thanks for a lot of things. And so just making sure that you're considering everyone in all your actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dozman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I'm very grateful to live, work, and recreate in Wheat Ridge. My family and I have especially enjoyed going to the Wheat Ridge Rec Center a lot more lately, and playing racquetball, which that's new to me and the boys. And so it's, as you would suspect, with three crazy little preteens. And so I just really love this community and the way we rally around each other, particularly during the holidays. And so I just want to wish all of my colleagues on council, as well as the public and the residents of Wheat Ridge, a happy Thanksgiving. And hopefully we'll be able to get out and enjoy some of those amenities that we have to offer. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Weaver.
Thank you. I do want to wish everyone a happy holiday this week. And as a local farmer, I hope everyone's thankful for their food that they're eating. And I was just at a big farming conference this last week, and it's just always a good reminder of not only to eat local, but to not waste as much as we do in this country. So, yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you. Counselor Rowland.
Thank you. And on that note, I've been supporting Wheat Ridge Poultry, and I will be at my happy place in front of the grill Thursday, smoking a turkey. And very fortunate this year that I will be one of 22 family members that will. So it's gonna be a big family and a lot of food. And so it's a. I'm very thankful for the family and all the food and to get together and. Just want to echo and what my other council members said. We have an amazing community, very supportive of each other. I'm really looking forward to, after Thanksgiving, the Christmas lights. So I saw a lot of impressive Halloween decorations in my neighborhood. And, those are things that make everybody happy. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Hobby.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to again congratulate Local Works on their award from the Gateway Awards. And I can't believe none of us have said this in the last 2 weeks, but I want to thank the voters of Wheat Ridge. I don't know how we've somehow escaped this, but both 2B and 2C passed with a massive margin. And so I'm very thankful for the voters of Wheat Ridge. I don't know what you think about nationally or statewide or whatever else, but the voters of Wheat Ridge really stepped up and spoke pretty big volumes for the work that not only I think that our staff is doing, but we're doing. And so I want to thank our voters and our residents of Wheat Ridge, because we have some pretty awesome people that live here, and we have some pretty amazing businesses too. So Wheat Ridge Poultry and Meats, Edwards Meats, everybody who's incredibly busy this week. So I want to thank them all, and good luck to all of them. And if you can find it, please find it and buy it in Wheat Ridge. Thank you. Okay. Oh, wait, one more thing. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, before you go. Mr. Goff and I had the opportunity to go to Cambridge Park last Thursday, and talk a little bit about what's going on in the city. It was a pretty phenomenal opportunity, and the people there are fantastic. So thank you for them to having us out again and again every year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanksgiving is coming. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to live in the country that I live in, and particularly in the city that I live in. I think we do great things here. I think we try to foster community, and I think that's very important, and I'm very thankful for that. I hope everyone out there that's listening to us will take a moment to be especially thankful for the people in their lives, for their friends, their family, for the contributions they make in our community. So I'm really grateful to be here. So if there's no more business to come before us tonight, we will be here 1 week from tonight for a study session. So we wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. Drive slowly and safely through our city so everyone gets home safe and sound. So we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all.